hell. I mean, I would virtually say it's slave labor in most cases, if you look at the kind of labor that women are doing. And if women really begin to know their rights and begin to know what they're entitled to, then they will actually take the power, because they actually have the power to be taken. So I think that's really an important point.
Lee Vensler and Marcus Bleasdale, thank you very much for discussing this. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Remember, you can follow our program on Twitter. We'll keep you notified on upcoming shows, and you can send us questions and comments to pose to our guests. On the next show, Tear Down This Wall. The man who wrote the immortal album The Wall more than 30 years ago is urging Israel to take down its separation barrier in the West Bank. Roger Waters reveals the passion behind his project for peace. Be sure to tune in for that. From me and the team, we'll see you next time.
Business Latest is brought to you by Qatar Gas, delivering energy to the world. Business Latest is brought to you by Qatar Gas, delivering energy to the world.
We do accept that there was very bad mistakes made in our banking area.
Behind the headlines,
most South Koreans are not interested in reunification.
Is the inside story at this time on Al Jazeera.
The battle for Brega, rebels take on the might of the Libyan Air Force in the oil-rich town.
Let's just call a spade a spade. A no-fly zone begins with an attack on Libya.
But America's defense chief warns about the implications of imposing a no-fly zone over the country. Hello, I'm Anand Naidu in Doha. This is Al Jazeera. In the next 90 minutes, we'll be bringing you the very latest on the uprising in Libya. As Al Jazeera learns, the Venezuelan president has offered to mediate a solution to the crisis. We'll be live in Caracas. In other news, thousands flee their homes as fighting intensifies between pro and anti-government forces in Cote d'Ivoire. Pakistan is preparing for the funeral of another politician killed in the crisis over the country's controversial blasphemy law. It's 7 in the morning in Libya, and the country is waking to another day of chaos as the uprising against Muammar Gaddafi continues. On Wednesday, the embattled Libyan leader gave another lengthy speech in which he again reminded the world he was not stepping down. Equally defiant are the protesters who've been battling pro-Gaddafi forces in various towns. This video, uploaded on the internet, is said to show rebel forces repelling a major counter-offensive by pro-Gaddafi troops in Brega. This footage has not been independently verified. Rebels took control of the oil export terminal a week ago. And Al Jazeera has been told in the last few hours that Colonel Gaddafi has accepted an offer by Venezuelan leader Hugo Chavez to mediate the crisis in Libya. We'll be live in Caracas in just a few minutes. All this as the International Criminal Court says there's cause to launch an investigation into crimes against humanity in Libya. They'll be releasing a report later on Thursday. We will be delving into all these latest lines in a moment, but first, Tony Bertley has our report.
It was a call to arms that was answered by thousands. From the towns and the desert, opposition fighters gathered in Ajdabia to repel an attack by forces loyal to Gaddafi. Their weapons range from the powerful tanks and anti-aircraft batteries to those more at home in a museum. There was confusion and disorganization. Shells were fired out. Complaints returned as residents ahead explained they were coming under fire from their own side.
What about the capability? I mean, you've got a lot of men here and you've got a lot of weapons. Can the men use the weapons?
God willing, they will learn to use the weapons effectively.
The conviction of the volunteers has to be admired. The capability is open to question. Gaddafi's forces were said to number around 300 men. They attacked the strategically important town of Brega at first light, and witnesses said they began firing indiscriminately.
This is in the morning. Many people come in mafia for Gaddafi. He killed many people in the morning.
Heavy weapons were sent forward and hundreds of trucks and cars stacked with ammo and guns taken from captured army stockpiles. Casualties came back. Many hurt, he told us, many dead.
This doesn't seem to have been a full-fledged assault, more like a probing attack. But it shows that Gaddafi forces are strong, they can strike at will, and that the Libyan leader shows no signs of giving up. Quite the contrary, he's hitting back. 10 kilometers from Brega and more forces congregated. No one seemed to know exactly what was happening. Then a Libyan Air Force bomber circled overhead. Its first bombing run hit close to the centre of the fighting near Brega University. The second hit our position. Landing 70 meters away. Miraculously, no one was hurt. Then Gaddafi's fighters fled.
We suddenly saw some Toyota cars with anti-aircraft batteries. They started firing mortar rounds. The shells fell near us.
They left behind spent mortar, shell and machine gun casings and 10 dead civilians. 21 people were wounded, including a 7-year-old boy who survived a bullet lodged in his nose.
These people who were killed, were they fighters or were they ordinary people?
Ordinary people. Ordinary people, he is going, when Gaddafi's people, he is coming to university.
2 of the bodies were said to be of Gaddafi fighters. It was claimed one carried ID showing he was from Niger in Africa, but it's hard to verify. Despite the howls of bravado, this brazen attack has provoked both fear and anger and reminds everyone of the violent threats of Gaddafi. On Wednesday, we witnessed why the opposition is desperate for a no-fly zone and why it may not have the military capability to liberate all of Libya by force just yet. But this conflict seems far from over, and the question is how many more Libyans are going to die before it is. Tony Bertley, AlJazeera, Brega, Eastern Libya.
Al Jazeera has learned that Muammar Gaddafi has spoken to Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez and agreed in principle to a mediation plan. Our correspondent Dima Khatib joins us now live from the Venezuelan capital, Caracas, with the latest. And Dima, what do we know